Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning we'll be in 2 Chronicles Chapter 17, verse 1 through Chapter 18, verse 34. Asa's son Jehoshaphat replaced him as king and solidified his rule over Israel. He placed troops in all of Judah's fortified cities and posted garrisons throughout the land of Judah and in the cities of Ephraim that his father Asa had seized. The Lord was with Jehoshaphat because he followed in his ancestor David's footsteps at the beginning of his reign. He did not seek the Baals, but instead sought the God of his ancestors and obeyed his commands, unlike the Israelites. The Lord made his kingdom secure. All Judah brought tribute to Jehoshaphat, and he became very wealthy and greatly respected. He was committed to following the Lord. He even removed the high places and Asherah poles from Judah. In the 3rd year of his reign, he sent his officials, Ben-Hail, Obadiah, Zechariah, Nethanel, and Micaiah, to teach in the cities of Judah. They were accompanied by the Levites, Shemaiah, Nethaniah, Zebediah, Asahel, Shemiramoth, Jehonathan, Adonijah, Tobijah, and Tob-Adonijah, and by the priests, Elishama and Jehoram. They taught throughout Judah, taking with them the scroll of the law of the Lord. They traveled to all the cities of Judah and taught the people. The Lord put fear into all the kingdoms surrounding Judah. They did not make war with Jehoshaphat. Some of the Philistines brought Jehoshaphat tribute, including a load of silver. The Arabs brought him 7,700 rams and 7,700 goats from their flocks. Jehoshaphat's power kept increasing. He built fortresses and storage cities throughout Judah. He had many supplies stored in the cities of Judah and an army of skilled warriors stationed in Jerusalem. These were their divisions by families. There were 1,000 officers from Judah. Adnah, the commander, led 300,000 skilled warriors. Jehochanan, the commander, led 280,000, and Amasiah, son of Zichri, who volunteered to serve the Lord, led 200,000 skilled warriors. From Benjamin, Eliada, a skilled warrior, led 200,000 men who were equipped with bows and shields, and Jehozabad led 180,000 trained warriors. These were the ones who served the king, besides those whom the king placed in the fortified cities throughout Judah. Jehoshaphat was very wealthy and greatly respected. He made an alliance marriage with Ahab, and after several years went down to visit Ahab in Samaria. Ahab slaughtered many sheep and cattle to honor Jehoshaphat and those who came with him. He persuaded him to join in an attack against Ramoth-Gilead. King Ahab of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, "Will you go with me to attack Ramoth-Gilead?" Jehoshaphat replied to the king of Israel, "I will support you. My army is at your disposal and will support you in battle." Then Jehoshaphat added, "First seek an oracle from the Lord." So the king of Israel assembled 400 prophets and asked them, "Should we attack Ramoth-Gilead or not?" They said, "Attack. God will hand it over to the king." But Jehoshaphat asked, "Is there not a prophet of the Lord still here that we may ask him?" The king of Israel answered Jehoshaphat, "There is still one man through whom we can seek the Lord's will, but I despise him, because he does not prophesy prosperity for me, but always disaster. His name is Micaiah, son of Imlah." Jehoshaphat said, "The king should not say such things." The king of Israel summoned an officer and said, "Quickly, bring Micaiah, son of Imlah." Now the king of Israel and King Jehoshaphat of Judah were sitting on their respective thrones, dressed in their royal robes, at the threshing floor at the entrance of the gate of Samaria. All the prophets were prophesying before them. Zedekiah, son of Kenana, made iron horns and said, "This is what the Lord says, with these you will gore Syria until they are destroyed." All the prophets were prophesying the same, saying, "Attack Ramoth-Gilead, you will succeed. The Lord will hand it over to the king." Now the messenger who went to summon Micaiah said to him, "Look, the prophets are in complete agreement that the king will succeed. Your words must agree with theirs. You must predict success." But Micaiah said, "As certainly as the Lord lives, I will say what my God tells me to say." Micaiah came before the king, and the king asked him, "Micaiah, should we attack Ramoth-Gilead or not?" He answered him, "Attack, you will succeed. They will be handed over to you." The king said to him, How many times must I make you solemnly promise in the name of the Lord to tell me only the truth?" Micaiah replied, "I saw all Israel scattered on the mountains, like sheep that have no shepherd. Then the Lord said, 'They have no master. They should go home in peace.'" The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, "Didn't I tell you he does not prophesy prosperity for me, but disaster?" Micaiah said, "That being the case, hear the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, with all the heavenly assemblies standing on his right and on his left. The Lord said, 'Who will deceive King Ahab of Israel, so he will attack Ramoth-Gilead and die there?' One said this, and another that. Then a spirit stepped forward and stood before the Lord. He said, 'I will deceive him.' The Lord asked him how. He replied, 'I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets.' The Lord said, 'Deceive and overpower him. Go out and do as you have proposed.' So now look, the Lord has placed a lying spirit in the mouths of all these prophets of yours, but the Lord has decreed disaster for you." Zedekiah, son of Kenana, approached, hit Micaiah on the jaw, and said, "Which way did the Lord's Spirit go when he went from me to speak to you?" Micaiah replied, "Look, you will see in the day when you go into an inner room to hide." Then the king of Israel said, "Take Micaiah and return him to Amon the city official, and Joash the king's son. Say, 'This is what the king says. Put this man in prison. Give him only a little bread and water until I return safely.'" Micaiah said, "If you really do return safely, then the Lord has not spoken through me." Then he added, "Take note, all you people." The king of Israel and King Jehoshaphat of Judah attacked Ramoth-Gilead. The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, "I will disguise myself and then enter the battle, but you wear your royal attire." So the king of Israel disguised himself, and they entered the battle. Now the king of Syria had ordered his chariot commanders, "Do not fight common soldiers or high-ranking officers, fight only the king of Israel." When the chariot commanders saw Jehoshaphat, they said, "He must be the king of Israel." So they turned in and attacked him. But Jehoshaphat cried out, "The Lord helped him." God lured them away from him. When the chariot commanders realized he was not the king of Israel, they turned away from him. Now an archer shot an arrow at random, and it struck the king of Israel between the plates of his armor. The king ordered his charioteer, "Turn around and take me from the battle line, for I am wounded." While the battle raged throughout that day, the king stood propped up on his chariot opposite the Syrians. He died in the evening, as the sun was setting. So you have Jehoshaphat here, who succeeds Asa, and he does good at the start of his reign, but then he forges this alliance with Ahab, who was the ruler of Israel at the time, and Ahab was married to Jezebel. And apparently, I had missed this sometime in my previous read-throughs, but Jehoshaphat was in a marriage alliance with Ahab. So that is, I guess he took a daughter of Ahab's, or some relative of Ahab's. So yeah, but it looks like Jehoshaphat is being all buddy-buddy with Ahab here, who the king of who God has repeatedly said, "Stop doing what you're doing." And it's crazy. You can see how bad company corrupts good character with this particular anecdote, in that Jehoshaphat seeks to please the Lord in his decision-making. So he asks, so all of these prophets of Baal are there saying, go, attack Ramoth-Gilead. It'll be fine. God will give it over to you. And Jehoshaphat says, I should probably ask God about this. And the prophet of God, Micaiah, son of Imlah, comes and says, hey, don't attack Ramoth-Gilead because you're going to die. And somehow Jehoshaphat is persuaded to go with Ahab. So rather than listening to the voice of the Lord, Jehoshaphat listens to the voice of Ahab and his prophets, which is not good. And somehow he's getting used in this relationship, man. In 2 Chronicles 18:29, I will disguise myself and then enter the battle. This is Ahab talking. But you wear your royal attire. So, you go be bait, I'll disguise myself. And the charioteers pursued Jehoshaphat because they thought he was the king of Israel. But, yeah. So, yeah, this bit with the deceiving spirit. Just a couple of notes I'd like to say on it is that Ahab clearly did not want to hear what the Lord had to say. And as such, he desired lies instead of the truth. And that being said, it wasn't just lies that he received. He also had the opportunity to receive the truth. And that this prophecy that Micaiah is giving contains the truth in it. But they chose to receive lies and embrace those rather than the truth. So, carrying on, Romans chapter 9, verse 22 through chapter 10, verse 13. But what if God, willing to demonstrate his wrath and to make known his power, has endured with much patience the objects of wrath prepared for destruction? And what if he is willing to make known the wealth of his glory on the objects of mercy that he has prepared beforehand for glory, even us, whom he has called, not only from the Jews, but also from the Gentiles? As he also says in Hosea, I will call those who were not my people, and I will call her who was unloved, my beloved. And in the very place where it was said to them, you are not my people, they will be called sons of the living God. And Isaiah cries out on behalf of Israel, though the number of the children of Israel are as the sand of the sea, only the remnant will be saved, for the Lord will execute his sentence on the earth completely and quickly, just as Isaiah predicted. If the Lord of armies had not left us descendants, we would have become like Sodom, and we would have resembled Gomorrah. What shall we say then? That the Gentiles who did not pursue righteousness obtained it, that is, a righteousness that is by faith, but Israel, even though pursuing a law of righteousness, did not attain it. Why not? Because they pursued it not by faith, but as if it were possible, by works. They stumbled over the stumbling stone, just as it is written, Look, I am laying in Zion a stone that will cause people to stumble, and a rock that will make them fall. Yet the one who believes in him will not be put to shame. Brothers and sisters, my heart's desire and prayer to God on behalf of my fellow Israelites is for their salvation. For I can testify that they are zealous for God, but their zeal is not in line with the truth. For ignoring the righteousness that comes from God, and seeking instead to establish their own righteousness, they did not submit to God's righteousness. For Christ is the end of the law, with the result that there is righteousness for everyone who believes. For Moses writes about the righteousness that is by the law. The one who does these things will live by them. But the righteousness that is by faith says, Do not say in your heart, who will ascend into heaven, that is, to bring Christ down, or who will descend into the abyss, that is, to bring Christ up from the dead. But what does it say? The word is near you, in your mouth and in your heart. That is, the word of faith that we preach. Because if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For with the heart one believes, and thus has righteousness, and with the mouth one confesses, and thus has salvation. For the Scripture says, Everyone who believes in him will not be put to shame. For there is no distinction between the Jew and the Greek, for the same Lord is the Lord of all, who richly blesses all who call on him. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Awesome. So, Paul is setting up this whole framework with the law and faith in place, and comparing and contrasting, like, righteousness obtained by the law and righteousness obtained by faith. Israel pursued righteousness by works and stumbled over the stumbling stone. In 9:33, I'm laying in Zion a stone that will cause people to stumble, and a rock that will make them fall, yet the one who believes in him will not be put to shame. Good quotation there. Faith is important. 10:3. For ignoring the righteousness that comes from God and seeking instead to establish their own righteousness, they did not submit to God's righteousness. Righteousness for everyone who believes. And of course, Romans 10:9 and 10. If you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For with the heart one believes, and thus has righteousness, and with the mouth one confesses, and thus has salvation. For us, I'd say that's the culmination of the Gospels, the ability to have a right relationship with God through faith in Jesus Christ. So, carrying on, Psalms chapter 20, verses 1 through 9. May the Lord answer you when you are in trouble. May the God of Jacob make you secure. May he send you help from his temple. From Zion may he give you support. May he take notice of your offerings. May he accept your burnt sacrifice. Selah. May he grant your heart's desire. May he bring all your plans to pass. Then we will shout for joy over your victory. We will rejoice in the name of our God. May the Lord grant all your requests. Now I am sure that the Lord will deliver his chosen king. He will intervene for him from his holy heavenly temple and display his mighty ability to deliver. Some trust in chariots and others in horses, but we depend on the Lord our God. They will fall down, but we will stand firm. The Lord will deliver the king. He will answer us when we call to him for help. There's a whole lot of reliance on the Lord in the Psalms. And finally, Proverbs chapter 20, verses 2 and 3. The king's terrifying anger is like the roar of a lion. Whoever provokes him sins against himself. It is an honor for a person to cease from strife, but every fool quarrels. Not good to be quarrelsome. Okay, well, thank you for joining me today. Hope you have a great day. Bye.